let's make some cute ornaments that you can customize, hang on your tree, or give to a friend. Welcome to Art with Viv. I'm Viv, and let's just jump right in. Now, I bought a set of 6 of these at Hobby Lobby. They're called frame ornaments. They have a little backing that comes off. I think they were like $4.99 for 6 of them. The backing comes off. It has a little clear sort of plastic sheet to protect the front of the frame, and it has a little backing. I use the backing as sort of my template. Now, the first thing I'm going to do with it is I am going to apply 2 coats of acrylic craft paint, and you can use whatever brand you like. If you want to use artist grade, you can do that too. I just like the acrylic craft paint because it's a little smoother. It's a little it's not as stiff and clumpy. It just goes on a lot smoother, and it's a lot less expensive than professional grade, artist grade acrylic. So I'm just going to put 2 coats on this, and then I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to let it dry in between each coat. I'm just showing you the first coat. I'm not going to make you watch me do the second coat. You know how to paint on a coat of paint. And this, I'm using an antique white. Then you'll let those 2 coats dry. Also let each coat dry in between. While that's drying, we're just going to go ahead and work on some hot pressed watercolor paper. Like I said, I used that back as the template for my circle, so I would know how big the circle needed to be. I just sketched in 2 candy canes with a little bow. I apologize for my camera. It is trying to focus every time I move. I had the wrong setting on it for the focus, so I do apologize. Throughout this video it's going to keep doing that, trying to focus, but I think you can see what I'm doing. So I just took some red paint, and on the red stripes of the candy cane, I'm going right to the edge with the full strength, not really full strength, but with a little more paint, and then I'm taking my brush, rinsing it a little bit, and taking some of the clean water and pulling that toward the center and leaving the center of that stripe white, the white of the paper. That makes it look like a highlight. So let me just go over that one more time because I might have confused you. You'll get your red paint. You paint it on each edge on opposite sides of that stripe. Then you'll rinse your brush and take some clean water and pull that paint toward the center from each side, but you'll leave the center white to be the highlight. And then you get a nice festive green. I'm just going to paint the center of the bow. I put in a nice amount of dark green pigment, and then I just rinsed my brush out and used clean water to just sort of blend that out. And now I went back and dropped in just a little bit more green into that already wet center of the bow. Now I'm taking a darker green, more concentrated, less water, and I'm just painting in the shadow parts of that bow. The inner part, not really the shadow parts. Well, it is a shadow part, but it's the inner part of the bows. Again, I apologize for my camera. It is nuts, but I do think you'll be able to follow along if you don't get totally aggravated. So again, I just applied some paint full strength, and then I took some water and blended it out. I want that outside of the bow, of course, to be lighter than the inner part where it's shadowed. So I'm using a less concentrated green paint, which just means I add a little bit more to water to the watercolor mix. That's all. I added less water to that area inside the bow and more water to the area to the outside of the bow to make it appear lighter. And if I didn't say this, I think I did, but I'm going to say it again if I did. I'm using 140-pound hot pressed watercolor paper. So it's very smooth watercolor paper. It doesn't have the texture on it. It's smooth. And while that bow is still a little bit damp, I'm coming back in with a deeper green with less water in there and just adding the shadows and sort of the crinkly parts. you know, where the bow is gathered up by that center part, it's going to crinkle a little bit more there. So we just add a few little lines for that to give it some movement and texture. Now I've got a really, really watery mix of ultramarine blue here, and I'm just going on the white parts of the candy cane, and that's going to be the shadows for the white stripes. And again, I'm doing it on each edge, the opposite edge of the stripe, and then just taking some clean water and blending it toward that center, leaving the very center white, the white of the paper, not getting any paint in that very center, so that it leaves that shiny highlight that travels down that candy cane. Now I've decided I'm going to add just a little bit of greenery back there. So I'm taking a really pale yellow green, and I just sort of drew in some lines for stems. It's nothing, you know, nothing too difficult. And then I'm just doing sort of like long ovals or just little brush strokes really along the edge on the opposite sides of that stem that I painted on there, and just going all along the edge, and then coming back with just a darker, just a little tiny bit of a darker shade of that green while it's still wet in some areas, so that you'll have a little variation. It's not all one flat green color, which would be boring. And it gives it some depth in the dimension. Anytime you can add light or shadow to a painting, that's going to give it a little bit more depth and dimension. So I'm not really like doing specific leaves, really detailed leaves. I'm just actually putting little blobs on either side of the little stem that I drew as I work my way down. And that's it. This is just, it's really small. That circle is less than 3 inches in diameter, so it's not a big painting. I'm using a golden maple detail brush. I think it looks like it's a size 0. And now I'm coming back with a little bit darker green paint and just adding in some shadows. Again, I apologize for my camera trying to focus, but I did not have time to re-film it, and I felt like you could get the idea of what I'm doing. As long as you don't get so aggravated, you just say, F this, I can't watch this, I've got to move on. And I would not blame you. So thank you for sticking in there if you're hanging in there with me. Now I just got a nice bright red, the same red that I used for the stripes, and I'm just painting in little circles. I'm not even leaving a highlight on them. I'm just doing them just little round circles. You can leave a tiny highlight in some of them if you would like. And the way that you do that is you just don't paint the paper. You paint all around and leave a tiny dot without any paint, so that the white of the paper shines through and it looks like a highlight. Optional for this because this is so small. Now we'll let that candy cane dry, and this is another design that I wanted to show you. All I'm doing is I'm just taking some burnt sienna, and I'm just doing like some strokes, just some paint strokes to look like branches. Some are thick, some are thin. It doesn't matter. There's no rhyme or reason. The one thing I would make sure that they're all going in the same direction. Mine are all going sort of pointing around clockwise. So you don't want some going one way and some going the other way. Make sure they're going around in the same direction. Then just like the foliage behind those, behind the candy canes, we're doing the same thing here. The only thing different on the wreath is we are changing up the colors of the green. Some of the green I added a little more yellow to, so that it'd be brighter and warmer. Some of the greens I added a little more blue to, so that it would be more of a blue-green, like a eucalyptus, or maybe one of those blue firs or something like that. I'm also changing the type of brush strokes. I'm doing little circles, maybe to look like eucalyptus. And then on others, I'm doing fine lines to look like pine needles. And on others, I'm just doing sort of long oval strokes with my brush. And just to look just like any kind of leaf. Just generic leaves. So the main thing you want to do with your wreath is vary the colors, add a little more yellow to the green, add a little blue to the two other greens, come in there with just a nice mid-tone green in some spots. So you just want to be changing up the colors of the greens as you go around, and kind of space it evenly, like where you have some blues, then greens, then come back with the blue greens, then the yellow greens, then the blue greens. Kind of space it out like a pattern almost, and then come in there in some areas to kind of fill in some blank spots. You can put in those red berries, but now you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll have some blue green and then some yellow green, and as I go around the wreath, I'm just sort of changing it up and making almost a pattern out of those colors. And then once you get it finished, you can fill in like I said, the kind of, empty areas with some red berries, a few more green leaves here and there, and also vary like how much water you put in your paint, because more water makes it look lighter, less water makes it look darker, and you don't have to actually mix a new color. You can make it lighter or darker based on how much water you add to the mix. So I'm just coming back in here, filling in some of these bare spots with some little red berries. This gives it a really nice pop of color, and it makes it look more Christmassy. And of course, you can add whatever kind of foliage you like. If you even want to put a bow in there, you could do that. I'm trying to keep it simple since these are so small. I didn't want to add too much to it. I just want it to be kind of festive. But you can paint anything you want in your little, I think these are 2 3/4 inch circles, and just customize it how you want. You could paint in names, dates, whatever. Now, as you see right here, I'm just coming back with a little bit of the darker brown. That's a little bit of burnt umber, and I just added a few darker twigs intertwined into those leaves. Again, gives it a little bit more depth. Then you want to let that dry, and once they're dry, or as we're letting those dry, just put it that way. Now our frame has actually dried, so we're coming back to it, and I'm using a tool that you would use for clay, for polymer clay, or for just regular clay to shape it. It's just got like a little ball on the end of it, and I'm just dipping that into my red craft paint, acrylic craft paint, and making little dots all around the frame. I'm not doing it in any certain pattern. I'm just doing it randomly around, trying to kind of space them evenly away from each other. And I'm doing clusters of 2, 3, 4, just whatever strikes me or I think fills in the space really well. So I'm not even worried about each one of them having 3 berries or 2 berries. It's just a mix of different amounts of berries in each cluster, and that keeps it kind of, not getting boring, getting too patterny. Then as those are drying, I am getting my nice Christmas green, again, just acrylic craft paint, and I'm just painting they're really just little blobs by the berries, and I kind of pull them a little bit long, so they're kind of long blobs. And they look like little leaves. That's what they're representing, but it's really I'm just touching my brush to the surface and just pulling it out just ever so slightly, so it's sort of a long oval blob. That's it. But it makes a really pretty pattern, and that red and green, of course, are complementary colors, so that really makes it pop. And I just like this combination. I don't know why I like the white background with that bright red and bright green. It just says Christmas to me, but you can paint yours any color you'd like. I'm just showing you my step-by-step process that you can use as a guide, and then you can change your colors up. Now at the end I'll show you two other ornaments I did to give you some more sort of inspiration or ideas of kind of patterns that you could do as well. They're not too dissimilar from this one, they're just a little different. So I will show you those at the end. Now we're going to let that dry, and now that it's dry, everything's dry. The candy canes are dry, the frame is dry, so I'm putting in that plastic piece. That plastic piece kind of protects it. The one thing you do want to do is make sure that the top of your design is lined up with the top where the hanger is, so that, you know, it looks straight when you hang it on the tree. The top is in the right position. And then you just put the backing back on, and there you go, a cute little customized ornament. And you can even write the date on the back if you'd like to, or put someone's name on the back. You can paint the back if you wanted. I just didn't go through all that trouble, but you could really customize it the way you want. And here are the three that I made. This is the one that I did with the wreath that I showed you. Red background, green leaves, and white berries. That's the one that we also did with the candy canes. And this is actually a sticker. I painted this, made a sticker out of it, and then put it in this blue ornament. It's just a blue background, but that mouse is an old painting of mine that I made a sticker out of and just stuck it in there. So that shows you how they can be customized. So I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget to give me a like, maybe leave a comment, tell me what you'd like to see, and I hope you have happy painting.